I believe I am on now. Welcome to our case study session. We are in the final stretch of an exciting day. So I thank you for your diligence and your continued interest. We have three very interesting panelists that we'll be hearing from today. Each of them will give roughly a 15-minute or so presentation, give or take. We'll have time for plenty of discussion. I do have some questions that I can throw out, but hopefully all of our presenters will have enough material that we can pick and choose and ask for clarifications and have some lively discussion. So, I am Marna Pozluzny from New York DEC. I work here in Albany at our central office in the Division of Environmental Permits in the Pollution Prevention Unit. The Environmental Excellence Award ceremony that we just heard is one of the things that I coordinate through my work, as well as working on other pollution prevention kind of initiatives. So I welcome you. I welcome our panelists. I'm going to do a brief introduction and hopefully I get things correctly. When we do have time for questions, I've been told since this is all being recorded, it would be best if you come to the microphones either on the left or the right, as you guys are looking. And that way your question can be easily heard on the videotape, and then the answer, if you all speak into the microphones when you present or answer questions, that would be helpful as well. So to my immediate left is Diane Cohen from the Reuse Center in Ithaca. She is the executive director of the Finger Lakes Reuse organization in Ithaca. It's a not-for-profit organization designed to promote and maximize reuse. As the young organization grows and stabilizes, Diane is hopeful to get other communities to realize the triple bottom line benefits of reuse, and they're working with really anybody that's interested in coming to them for their services: academic institutions, individuals, hospitals, contractors, schools, etc. So welcome, Diane, and I'll introduce everybody and then we'll come back around for our presentations. To Diane's left is Peter Bennison from the Regional Computer Recycling and Recovery Company. He is the Director of Business Development and has 23 years of experience in electronics recycling and environmental services. He's been active in the electronics recycling industry, serving on education committees, is the past chair of the International Electronics Recyclers Institute, and he is one of our previous Environmental Excellence Awards winners. So welcome. And finally, we have Paul Green, who is the chairman of the board of the American Biogas Council. He works for an environmental consulting agency named O'Brien & Gear, Syracuse-based, but Paul is local. And the Biogas Council, excuse me, is the first national nonprofit to advocate for biogas as a means of creating renewable energy. They've grown in their 2 years of life from 0 members to 150 over just a short 2-year span. So that's quite impressive, and welcome, Paul. And I believe we have, do you have a PowerPoint?
I do.
Okay, so we are, and it's ready to go. So we will go ahead, dim the lights, and we will get going. I will give you sort of a 15-minute warning, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I have a 2-hour presentation now.
I'll be standing up a lot.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to Katie Kelly for helping organize this. I'm really happy to be here. I'm actually from the Albany area, so it's nice to be home and staying with my parents in the house that I lived in since 5th grade, so that's fun. Same sheets. Okay, so I want to tell you a little bit about the organization we're at, and I'm going to go really quickly because we're 3 years old, but we've done a lot of stuff, and I have business cards and would love if anybody wants to follow up with me if they have questions about specific aspects of it. I can certainly address some of it here, but would love to have a continuing conversation because I personally believe that this is something that could really be something that could have a positive effect on a healthy economy and environment in all of our communities. So we're really trying to set this up as a model that others can replicate, and we'd love to help and be as open in the process as we possibly can. So we're a nonprofit 501c3 organization. We initiated the project planning in 2005, and then we started a 2.5-year planning process from 2006 to 2008, and then we finally opened our doors and really began operating when we opened our reuse center in November of 2008. In the planning phase, I'll go into a little more detail about it, but we developed some surveys and administered them. It took, I thought it would take about 4 weeks. It took about 11 months, but that's been part of the process, and the questions that we had answered through that process really informed our business plan and made us a much stronger organization as a result. And then the best practices that we identified from other organizations around the country, we've tried to incorporate as best as possible. We have 3 main programs. So we have our reuse center that's open 7 days a week, and then we started the following spring or summer of 2009 a deconstruction services program. Do people know what deconstruction is in this room? Show of hands, maybe. Okay, good. So I'll explain that a little bit more to you. And then our computer reuse program we started in April of 2010. So initially, when we were developing our surveys, and before that, the first thing we needed to do is figure out what kind of business structure would be the most effective for the type of thing that we wanted to do. And there are models out there of private businesses that are actually making good money, nonprofits that are more mission-oriented and have a broader array of services, and then municipal-run programs. And we chose the nonprofit route because of the direct advantages associated with it. There was, startup grant money, volunteer labor, the tax-deductible benefit when someone donates an item to you, and if we toyed with the idea of a municipal program, but there's so much process when you're trying to start things up that we thought that we'd have a little more freedom and autonomy as a nonprofit. And so the next thing we did was really try to identify who the stakeholders were. And we knew there was a group of us that were talking about things, so we started meeting. But then we also held open community meetings. We had 3 a year apart in early 2006, 2007, and 2008. And the people that kept showing up really became kind of primary stakeholders. And the ones that were coming to regular meetings and were the most interested and engaged actually became our founding board members. And that's just how, the organization is really based on the energy that people have put into it. And it's really helped us with our evolution. Another thing that I'd like to share, if people do consider the nonprofit route, is to develop support and the financial support you need to do this. One of the things that we did is shared what's called a case statement in draft form with potential supporters. And what a case statement is, it's a tool for usually you see larger nonprofits have a really nice glossy set of materials with beautiful pictures and quotes from clients, et cetera. And what we did is, instead of printing everything out and hitting people over the head with our ideas, we just put it in a Microsoft Word document and emailed it to people and said, we'd like to hear what your thoughts are. And I wish we had done that with more people, because I think the handful of people that we sent it to are all really engaged in a significant way at this point. So that's something I can't recommend strongly enough. And then the other major early decision was the siting. A lot of communities have a lot of empty building stock. We're in Ithaca, New York, and there's not very much. But if you can get a building donated, some of the cost savings you could spend on the marketing to get people there. A lot of people say with a highly visible site, which is the route we went because a donated building wasn't an option, that was a preferred solution for us. So, once we were kind of defining who we are, we knew we wanted to target materials that weren't being well served in our community. We wanted to provide a conduit for material wealth from those who have too much or can afford to give some away to those who are in need. And just to provide that alternative opportunity, obviously, to the landfill. We wanted to actively seek opportunities for collaboration because, especially in Ithaca, but anywhere in a kind of downturning economy, the nonprofits that do exist had more needs than ever, and so we didn't want to step on anyone's toes. We wanted to see how we could strengthen other efforts through collaborative relationships, and we've been able to do that fairly successfully. And I'll get out of the theory and into the reality of it a couple slides from now. And then finding the appropriate facility. Actually, we're still on a search. It's been a 6-year siting process for me, and my next career will be a commercial realtor because I know all about that stuff now. And ultimately, a shift in cultural consciousness. I saw someone in another presentation, maybe at lunch, refer to that, and having reuse become a ubiquitous thing, which in some groups it's starting to be that way. Certainly in this one, this is a good group to talk to. We started with an advisory council in 2005. We held these community meetings. We started asking questions. We shared draft plans. And then our business plan was really well informed by the time we rolled it out in the spring of 2007. Then we incorporated in New York State in the fall of 2007. New York State requires a minimum of three board members, and that's what we started with. And now we have 8, and we can have up to 15 now. We just expanded that, and then we got our 501c3 status from the IRS in the summer of 2008, and then we opened the doors to the Reuse Center. The surveys that we did are actually completely available on our website. You can download them, they're in a PDF, but we did a series of different surveys. One was talking to other organizations around the country, asking them, what size facility, how many volunteer hours, blah, 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 went on and on. We tried to choose ones that we had identified as kind of best practices, leading organizations. We also looked at our local tipping floor. What are people throwing away? We looked at, who's actively reusing what. We knew we didn't want to do books because we had a really active, one of the largest book sales in the country that benefits our library. And then we talked to consumers and generators of reusable materials, big box stores, small businesses, contractors, students, the colleges that are in our town. All those results are in this report. Some of the key results and recommendations for our business plan were that in order to effectively inspire reuse, low price, and convenience, an easy way to get rid of the stuff were absolutely key to people. And then I kind of laughed when I saw this, but the ideal size facility that our document recommended was a 45,000 to 65,000 square foot place, which we actually could use, but we're in 7,000 square feet right now. I'll tell you a little bit about that, the challenges with that. Also, the materials that we identified that were really underserved were furniture, household goods, building materials, and electronics. And computers aren't specifically on there because at the time there were 2 programs doing computers, and now we're partnered with one and the other one lost their lease, so they don't exist anymore, and they gave us everything. So we kind of absorbed that program, and we do computers and electronics. It also said 20 to 25 full-time equivalents, which we definitely could use, but we have 12 employees and 9 full-time equivalent staff. So a mission statement is a really key piece to a nonprofit organization, but most businesses have one as well. And we were really excited about the day that we developed our mission statement because it's been really solid. We have no desire to change it, but to enhance community, economy, and environment through reuse. We love the parallels to the People, Planet, Profit. We wanted to start up a nonprofit that had a strong business plan. There's a misnomer about nonprofits that they don't make a profit. It's really that the board members aren't supposed to profit from the activities of it. But if we make what we call in our industry a surplus, that would go into educational programming, stipends for job training. We'd certainly reinvest any surpluses. Not there yet, but we can dream about it. While the mission is a little bit abstract, we also decided that some tangible goals would be something that people could really understand. So these are also something we have had no desire to change, and it really has helped us be a solid organization. We knew we wanted to reduce waste, provide poverty relief, and to teach reuse-related job skills. So here's our 3 programs, and I'll give you more details just in the interest of time. I'll go through each one. So here, our reuse center is it's in essentially a strip mall. It's called Trip Hammer Marketplace in Ithaca. We'll use any kind of volunteer. You can see we have white German shepherds in this picture, but we've got, we work with college students, we work with service groups, our staff is great, we work with Tompkins County Probation, we work with the Work Experience Program when people people are trying to get job training. A whole bunch of different people have helped make this happen. But like I said, it's a 7,000 square foot strip mall. It's not great for building materials, but it's great for furniture and household goods and walk-by traffic that wouldn't have any idea about us otherwise. Because of convenience, we decided to try opening 7 days a week. We're in a mall where people are around 7 days a week, and that's actually, although we would love to close 1 day a week, we can't see one that's actually weaker than another, so we are maintaining that schedule. It's been difficult, but we're doing it. We started with the three types of materials: furniture, household goods, building materials. We spent a lot of time customizing a point of sale system, which is what spits out the barcoded price tags on everything. So at the back end, we've got someone who has to be somewhat knowledgeable about the materials. They incorporate an estimated weight. When we get a scale donated, it won't be estimated anymore, but right now there's an estimated weight for each item that comes through. We know who gave it to us. We know when it came in. And then for our model, because we want to provide jobs and entry-level opportunities, at the cash register, someone doesn't really have to know anything about it. They can just scan the barcode and they can sell the item without really having to know too much. And so we've brought a lot of people in at entry-level through our cash register, and that's been really successful kind of staff development tool for us. We pay a living wage. We offer health benefits for our staff. And right now, about 40% of our overall labor is through volunteers. We're trying to increase that. We're now 3 years old. So here's just some samples of furniture, household goods, and super affordable. We try to price stuff 50 to 90% below what you could get it for anywhere else. A lot of stuff that we have you couldn't get anywhere else. So, and then building materials, stacking lumber on carpet is not ideal. We're desperately looking for a lumber yard, and hopefully that'll be something that happens fairly soon. So that's the reuse center, and then our deconstruction program. Deconstruction is the disassembly of whole buildings by hand. It's a safe industry. It's also an excellent job training tool for the construction trades. We've worked with at-risk youth. We can teach, on-site construction safety, tool use, and deconstruction is construction in reverse. So there's all sorts of techniques that you learn as you're taking a house apart. Before we even had our warehouse, we did do a pilot project for Ithaca College where we dismantled an 800 square foot cottage. And it was a nice thing for us to do because we documented it all, and then we were able to share with people, here's pictures, this is what we could do. We ended up storing the lumber partly in my garage and stashing stuff everywhere because we didn't have a place for the stuff to go. We eventually sold it through the reuse center. But we just used local contractors who had never deconstructed before, but they had constructed, so they knew what to do. They had the tools. And it only took us 6 days to do that and process and denail all the materials. This is a project from just this past, we've done a bunch of houses since then, and it looks like our deconstruction crew will be busy right through the winter, which is fantastic. This particular house, I think we did through 3 blizzards. We started in late February of 2011, and I think it took us about 6 weeks, but we weren't working on it every day. We were either snowed out or we were doing other jobs at the same time. There wasn't time pressure on this particular house, and it was on a busy road, so we kind of used it as a showcase for the community, and it actually was a great selling point for us and really helped us get some other jobs. But just the tool handling and the job training opportunities are huge. You can see this picture in the lower left is Ithaca College students helped us stack a bunch of the lumber, and all you can see is the end grain of the boards. You can't really inspect it. It's not an ideal scenario, and actually now our computer program is there, and our lumber we've stored in storage units, and it's been all over the place, but we got a grant for lumber racks. We just need a yard to put the racks in. That's hopefully coming very soon. So then the computer reuse program. There was a program for 10 years called Babbage's Basement. It was a fundraiser for the Science Center, which is a children's museum in Ithaca. And if you guys have kids and you ever come to Ithaca, that's definitely worth a stop. And they were raising about $50,000 a year. $50,000 a year, free and clear, but they had a free space donated to them. They didn't have any bills. That was all volunteer run. So we had at least their numbers to go on. And then another program that teaches middle schoolers after school called the Computer All-Stars through our Ithaca Youth Bureau. They've been a planning partner with us, and we finally opened the door. We convinced them all to give us the storefront next door, and we opened up our e-center in April of 2010. Tompkins County Solid Waste, I've seen them cited here today. They're a really progressive organization, and they have really helped fund the planning and helped us get all these efforts up and running. So they are really key partners. The Ithaca Youth Bureau was huge. The program that no longer exists, Babbage's Basement, we now have a bunch of their volunteer labor, a bunch of their tools. Ithaca College and Cornell were really helpful, and then Cooperative Extension with their educational mission has been really, really supportive of trying to get this off the ground. Extending the lives of computers and reducing unnecessary waste. We basically have unrestricted rules. We'll take any computers and electronics. With the other stuff, furniture, household goods, building materials, it has to be in clean working condition. But with electronics, we'll take it, just because someone has a laptop that isn't working doesn't mean that it could just be a simple software issue. So we want to have a look at it before we make the call whether it should be recycled or if we can try to refurbish it for reuse. We also, because we have the skill sets to refurbish the machines, we thought we'd try to offer a low-cost IT service. We're really trying to target low-income families and nonprofits and try to give them kind of an affordable alternative to the going rate for IT services, and actually with great support from the private IT community, because they can't serve all the nonprofits in town, and so they've been very supportive of us getting this program off the ground. And the technology education that we can provide and the marketable job skills that are associated with the process of refurbishing electronics is enormous, and we're just beginning to tap that process right now. So you can see how the two storefronts are next door to each other. We had creative reuse workshops. In the upper right, we're teaching people how to take a hard drive. They take the computer apart, they pull the hard drive out, they pull the disk out of the hard drive, and then they're making them into clockworks. And these are little kids that are, learning about what's inside the guts of a computer. I now know what a motherboard is, and very excited to know what a heat sink is, and you know all about that stuff. We offer all the operating systems, Linux, Macs, PCs. This is a retired volunteer who works practically full-time. And then after about 6 months, we started getting really overwhelmed with the volume of materials that were coming in at us, and we just, these are students helping us just manage just the stuff for recycling. We were just falling way behind. You can see this is, after a year, we were just, it was really chaos. This actually is a fairly organized picture of what had resulted. And what we decided is that we weren't yet paying the mall level rent through the sales of the refurbished computers, so we downsized that whole space and we mushed it into the reuse center. So it's all into the 7,000 square feet now, so that we wouldn't have to pay the overhead and have two cashiers side by side. And it saved us some money, and actually the e-center program is running better than ever. This is the new kind of retail space. This is actually an old picture. Now they've got cool screensavers and great machines. We're selling, I think, between $5,000 and $6,000 worth of refurbished computers a month now. Here's some kids from a high school after-school program helping us disassemble computers. One of the things we learned is that we really needed more people than space for the computer reuse program. It's a huge training opportunity, and anybody that comes to get even a small workshop from us loves the experience. We know eventually we're going to need to create better space for the processing and recycling piece, and we're still learning about downstream sources, so we're going to I'll be very interested in Peter's talk. So let's see, I'm just going to show you a couple of charts, and then I'm almost done here. How am I on time?
You are 17 minutes in.
Oh, I said it was going to be 18 minutes.
Very good.
No, it's going to be 19, sorry. I've just got some charts here that just shows the growth that we've seen over the last 3 years. Number of visitors to the reuse center, the incoming inventory in terms of tonnage, the number of transactions at our cash register each day, and then our monthly sales in dollars. So you can see in 2009, I don't know if you can see the little numbers at the bottom, but for the first year we were doing 1,500 to 2,500 people to the reuse center a month. And for the last 4 months, it's been 3,500 to 4,000 people. So that's some really nice, solid growth. And November was insane. We were like hoping for things to calm down, but it's busier than ever. So and we're not really complaining. As far as tons donated, that's a nice upward trend as well. There's some skewed stuff in the last year because we started running out of space in our store, so we started stashing things, and we now have 3 40-foot trailers, and actually Cornell gave us some temporary space, and then maybe there's a spike in October because we had to empty out the temporary space. So that the last year is like maybe less stable than it you know, showing what's coming in, because it doesn't hit our computers until we take it out of storage and try to put it on the floor. But it's, you know, going from, you know, 5 to 10 tons a month, and now we've had a couple of 20-ton months, which is great. And number of transactions per day, you know, 10 to 20 in the first year, and now we're up over 40 for the last 4 months, and that's been fantastic. We just added a second register for credit cards only, except for we still only have one person working there, so we haven't quite figured that out. Every once in a while we have a second person. And then total sales, you know, $5,000 to $15,000 a month in the first year, and in the last 4 months, it's $25,000 to $30,000 a month. So that's been some nice growth as well. You know, current challenges, just briefly, we feel constantly frustrated by, you know, not enough cash, not enough staffing, not enough space. And just in case you're wondering, our budget's about $700,000 in our earned income through sales and services. We charge for our deconstruction service, we charge our cost, and then sales of materials covers about 55% of that $700,000 budget. You know, on the flip side, it's really taught us to be incredibly efficient with the space that we have. You know, we're maximizing the value of volunteer energy, so we're kind of forced to become more robust within our limitations. And we're on track to meet our goal to be 75% self-sufficient within 5 years. That was a stated goal early on. Like I said, our website has the surveys and a lot of the data that we crunch from that. And I've got business cards, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think what we'll do is hold questions for the entire panel. So unless somebody has a burning question right now, if you do, jot it down for me, please. And we'll go ahead and hear from Peter Benison from the, I should know, Regional Computer and Recycling and Recovery Group in locally here in the Capital District, and then we will follow up with Paul Green. So I am going to dash out for just one moment, and Katie Kelly is right here. I will be right back.
Okay.
Do we know how?
I got you.
Perfect.
I'm just sitting there going now.
Nope, that's
Sorry
okay.
about that.
If you get Peter all set, I will be
Yep.
right back in the room.
Okay, let's just,
Yeah, you can go up, down, or left,
oh,
right.
okay, great. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks very much for having me here today. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit more. My presentation is going to be basically about the New York State e-waste law that was passed and how it's affected the industry and how it's affected our company in a positive way. I think there may be other opportunities like this out there where the public and private sector come together with an idea that is mutually beneficial. So we're going to get into some of the details of that. And just as a little overview, Marta gave an introduction. My experience has been in electronics recycling and environmental services for quite a few years, and I've kind of run the gamut of experience, starting in a very small startup operation back in 1997, and then went to a very large multinational company that operations all over the world, and I did that for a couple of years. And then most recently with RCR&R, which is based in Victor, New York, and we're more of a regional company, as our name indicates. So we service really the Northeast and mainly New York. Prior to that, I worked at Waste Management, the large solid waste and recycling company, for many years. So a little bit more about our company, just as an overview, give you a background on what we do. We're one of the largest in the Northeast. We operate our facilities a little over 100,000 square feet, and we started in 1995. We moved to this facility back in 2005. It's where our headquarters is. It's where all of our main processing is done. And we recently are proud of this accomplishment, and we'll get into a little bit more of this in a few minutes, is our R2, RIOS, and NAID certifications. Our industry has really changed and evolved, and what's happened is folks want to know that material is being managed properly. And so there are things like environmental management systems, financial stability, insurance, lots of details to make sure that are in order to process this equipment safely and in the proper way from an environmental standpoint. So a little bit more about the law. Many of you may or may, I'm not sure if any, let's see a show of hands. Anybody know of the New York State Electronics Recycling and Reuse Act? Great. All right. So we do have some people that are knowledgeable. Sometimes I get to talk with people and they're just unaware that there is a law and what the options are. So we'll talk about there's a lot of information here, but the one highlighted portion that I would like to talk about is that the law is designed to ensure that every New Yorker has an opportunity to recycle their electronic waste in an environmentally responsible manner. So what that entails is there needs to be a very solid, robust infrastructure in place in order for this to happen, where people can have a free and convenient system. So the DEC, and one of the things that I think they did very well is they waited. The DEC waited on this law until they got experience and information about other state laws and what was effective, what was not effective, what were things that were, let's say, impediments to recycling more, what were things that, so the fact that they did wait, and they were I believe New York was the 23rd state in the country to pass a law, we really reap some benefits of that and that experience and those best practices. So I think there should be a lot of kudos to the DEC in utilizing that information in order to pass a law that really makes sense for business and it makes sense for the environment. And really, again, that's why I thought when I became aware of this conference, these are two things that are connected. The environment and the economy are connected, and they both have to interact in order to have a sustainable solution going forward. So this is a little bit more about that. And so, in the world of e-waste laws around the country, most of them now are termed producer responsibility laws. So that people have come to realize that the folks that are making the computers and the television sets and all the electronics really should be the ones to manage it. And there's a number of reasons for that. But it's really, although it's a producer responsibility law and there's product stewardship, and these are all great concepts, it's still a shared responsibility. The manufacturers they shouldn't be given this burden entirely of this issue because it's a challenge. So it's a shared responsibility. Who's it shared with? Well, it's the producer because they're paying for it. And they're designing their products, and we're hoping that they're designing their products in a way that are more readily recycled and that are conserve energy more than the old style machines. So those are just a few, but there's more. And then you have consumers, and what role do consumers play? Well, they have an option of what to purchase. They can decide they want to go with an energy efficient model or not, or they can decide that what about a company's practices on their recycling and many other decisions that people would make. And then they also have a decision to make at the end of life. So when they decide that they're done with the laptop and now they want to get the latest one, the best thing to do would be to go to an organization like Diane's and say, it still works, it's perfect. I don't need it anymore, but let's get it into the hands of someone that can actually use it and benefit from that. So the consumer has a role there. Municipalities play a role. When I say municipality, I mean everything from villages, towns, cities, counties, and the state government. They all play a role in hosting an opportunity to collect the material and provide resources. In the case of the DEC, they provided a lot of resources. In the case of towns and villages, sometimes it may be just a location. It could be a forklift, could be a couple of staff members, but they're actually contributing to the effective recycling. So, and the last one is the recycling industry and companies like ours. We have a lot of responsibility in this area. We need to make sure that we're doing things in a quality manner and that we're doing things in a very efficient manner. So that's why I get back to this shared responsibility, and that product stewardship is great, and I think there's a lot of folks that would promote product stewardship in many different areas, not just electronics, but many, many other products that I think is important. So when we look at the infrastructure that exists today for electronics recycling within the state, there are these kind of key points. So the infrastructure consists of collection sites that exist out there in the state, the processing facilities that actually demanufacture and deal with the materials. You've got the whole logistics piece of it, where it has to go from point A to point B and be consolidated. And then you've got to have some industry experience and know how to do this the right way, which leads into the last topic, which is the certifications and the downstream due diligence. Extremely important. In the old days, many companies were very protective of their information, of where their markets were, and this was a lot of behind-the-scenes things that took place and where materials ended up. In this world that we live in now, in working with manufacturers, it's very transparent. We have to have a mass balance. We have to document every pound that comes into our facility and where all those pounds went to and how they were processed and who processed them. So those things are extremely important in having things done properly. So where are we at in the state, and what's happened since the law was passed? Well, currently, this is as of last Friday, I got this information from the DEC. We're up over 600 collection sites around the state. So, and it's still growing. And these collection sites will range from your local municipal transfer stations. They could be a local computer store. It could be Best Buy or Staples. Many retailers participate. But there are lots of options now for folks to bring their equipment, and it's free, and it should be convenient with this many locations out there. Again, a little bit more on the infrastructure is once it gets collected, it has to be processed. So we've got in the state 43 electronic waste recycling facilities that are registered. So you've got a wide range in those 43. You got some that are really just doing basic things in a certain segment of electronics, and then you've got others that are doing everything and are very large. So in addition, you've got consolidation facilities. There's 57 of those where there really isn't any processing done. Material is accumulated, collected, and then moved to a facility to be processed. This one, this next piece, bullet, is there are 81 manufacturers registered within the state. That one jumps out at me as being very low. If you think about the range of equipment that's covered under the law, televisions, computers, computer monitors, printers, fax machines, DVD players, stereo equipment, cable TV boxes, video game consoles, and the list goes on. There's a lot of manufacturers that make those things. I think it's more than 81, but that's just an opinion. And I think what we'll see over time is we'll get more of those manufacturers to participate in the program, and those costs will be spread among a larger group. And then the last piece of this infrastructure is the collectives that exist out there. A collective, what a collective is it's basically a management company that deals with manufacturers in order to comply with the state laws. So these collectives may represent multiple manufacturers, and their role is to manage these programs for the manufacturers. So they're paid a fee, and they do all the reporting and take care of starting collections and getting things in the proper order for the manufacturers. So what do we see? We see a lot more growth in this industry, a lot more. If what we know today, the law reads that the goal is 3 pounds per capita for every New Yorker. With just under 20 million New Yorkers, and with only 9 months of this year to calculate, This year's goal for the state of New York is 45 million pounds of equipment. It's a pretty tall order, and we're starting to see at the end of the year where this is going to be a stretch for companies to come up with this weight. So next year, the goal gets even more aggressive. It actually goes to 4 pounds per capita, which is a good thing. And it's, I think, the way that the state decided to kind of ramp this up 1 year at a time. But we now have a full calendar year. We have full 12 months, so the number goes from 45 million, it goes to 80 million. And the year after that, it goes to 100 million pounds. So there's going to continue to be more growth. We've seen the growth. We've seen, I'm going to get into the next slide here. So what has this done? How has it affected companies like ours and others around the state? There's lots of other recycling companies. It's caused them to add employees. It's caused them to grow their capabilities. It's caused them to improve the quality and the scope of their services. And the reason is, the second bullet, that the manufacturers who are responsible under the law have extremely high standards. If they're going to be the ones that are going to pay for these services and be responsible to manage the program, they're going to require some very, very tough standards and audits. And that's what we really spent the last year doing, was going through these audits and getting on the same page with the manufacturers and what their requirements are. So again, it's good. It's a good thing that the infrastructure is getting better. It's improving. This slide didn't come out that good, but this is one that I think really hits to Diane's point, and you know, this is also about resource conservation. So there are companies out there that have big shredders and material separation technology and conveyor equipment, and those are all good. And it's important for our industry to have that technology and to utilize it to make the processing and material recovery better. But there's still, in our world, about 10% of the equipment that we deal with, a little less, that comes through, that still has a value. There's still, it was made as a computer, it was made as a laptop, it was made as a flat panel monitor, or whatever it may be, and we're going to try to maximize that value. So we always, you know, this has been a chart that we've worked on for many years in the industry, and you know, worked with lots of different organizations around the country, but reuse is the best. And if you can't reuse because there's some reason, it's too old or it's broken, the screen, there are parts and pieces and components. And beyond that, you still, at the bottom of this pyramid, you still have this whole reclamation piece of the materials. But we try to look at the top of this upside down pyramid and focus on that as much as possible. So again, what are the other benefits? What's happened since this law has taken place, and what's going on with the infrastructure? Well, job creation. You know, if you listen to the messages that are out there, and the commissioner that had a few words earlier, if you listen to what the governor is saying, New York, we need to create jobs. That's what's going to drive our economy. It's what's going to, so it's very important. And just, you know, I didn't want to put any figures in because I don't know the exact, but I know that about a year ago we had about 70 employees, and currently we're at, the number is somewhere between 110 and 120 people. So in a year's time, that's a pretty dramatic and significant increase in people that we've employed, and we work with the Department of Labor, and we're taking unemployed workers and putting them back to work. It's a very, very positive sign that we see, and we see more of that next year. So what else? What other things? Collection sites. I mentioned there are 600 of them now. There's a tremendous network of collection sites out there, so people now have this opportunity to do the right thing. Most people, if you ask them, they would much rather recycle that old TV or whatever it is that they have than put it into the waste stream or store it or keep it somewhere else. So they want to do the right thing, and we really need to give them the opportunity to do the right thing. What else is happening? We're adding logistics capabilities. We found that we need to service other parts of the state. We did very well in upstate New York and western New York and central New York and the Capital District, but now we know we need to service the New York City market. So in order to do that, we're adding trucks. We're going to be opening facilities in New York City and Long Island. That's a very positive economic development as a result, I think, to the law, and the fact that things are becoming more streamlined, and there are more checks and balances. And what else has happened, and this is another benefit that you might see, is that companies are offering now, in addition to the free e-waste that's now included under the law, is they can offer turnkey programs, things like data security, and hard drive shredding, or hard drive sanitation, and other media. We've all heard the stories about everything now. It's not just computers and laptops. We're talking about printers, copiers, fax machines, all these other things that may contain data. That stuff has to be managed in a proper way as well. The identity theft issues that are out there, and all these other compliance measures for HIPAA and the Health Insurance Act, very important to have that piece as well as the logistics. So that's another kind of intangible benefit that's a result. A quick slide about the certifications and the due diligence. There's a number of them out there. There's actually two main certification programs that exist, and they're both very good, and they're both based on some core fundamentals in that quality, environmental management systems, worker health and safety, and measuring and managing your downstream markets are all really the key elements in data security if we look at the NAID standard as well. So what does that mean? Well, it's expensive. It takes a lot of time. We spent 2 years preparing for and going through our audit process to become R2 and RIO certified. But it's extremely important, and we knew that if we didn't get to that level and we couldn't get to that quality of service, then we weren't going to be able to work with these manufacturers who are responsible under the law. So the bar is higher now than it ever was, and the benefits are very apparent that the quality of service is going up. So there are some challenges, and I had a couple of discussions earlier about just the whole education and the awareness of this, and the outreach that I think needs to take place. And I don't have the answer, but I think along with manufacturers, it goes back to the shared responsibility of getting the word out to the general public and knowing that there are options, and to minimize what goes out into the waste stream and maximize what's getting recovered and recycled. So, but again, these are materials that are complex. You're dealing with everything from old console TVs that may be 30 years old to latest generation medical equipment that happens to come in at the same time, and all kinds of different environmental challenges that exist along those lines as well. And you're also looking at transportation and logistics. So at the end of the day, most of this equipment is relatively low in value. If you look at it, say, an old television set, it's actually negative. It costs money to process. So moving that in long distances is not good. So we're trying to take and shorten the distance that things have to move in order to be processed effectively. So things that are changing, and again, relates closely to what Diane is talking about, is the changing markets for reuse. The faster they make this equipment and the less expensive and it does more, the challenge becomes on that reuse side is still finding a good home for that. So those are things that I think are going to continue, and it's just a moving target that we need to keep an eye on. This next bullet about the fluctuating commodity prices is extremely important. And if we go back in time to 2008, when our economy went through some very challenging times, well, the commodities market took a complete nosedive. And when we were moving materials and recovering revenue from some of our scrap materials, that basically came to a standstill or a stop. And unless we had some resources that we had saved, we would have been out of business. Some companies came very, very close to going out of business at that time. But you've got to be able to manage that fluctuating marketplace. And the last one is that economies of scale. We're not any different than recycling newspapers or tin cans or plastic bottles. We need a large stream of volume in order to become very efficient at what we do. So those are some of the challenges. And I guess just to wrap things up and really talk about how bring this back to why we're here for this conference, healthy economy and a healthy environment. This example of what the New York State law has done for companies like ours and others, I think could be replicated. I think there are other areas where we could look at environmental management, job creation, an infrastructure to manage electronics and this material, and raising the quality and raising the recycling rates and then the amount of material that's actually diverted from our solid waste stream. So that's really I guess, again, to kind of bring it full circle, I think there are more opportunities like this out there, and I think if we talk more about it, we go through these product stewardship sessions and become more aware, I think there are some more opportunities that we'll see down the road. So that's pretty much it. This is a quick photo of our place, our trucks, and our team in Victor, and we're happy to say that we're continuing to grow, and we see more growth on the horizon. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and Peter, I apologize. I had a family issue to attend to, so I apologize to step out for a bit, but I'm glad to hear the end of it. And I think it's interesting that, from very different economies of scale, hearing Diane talk about trying to reuse and repurpose, and then, Peter's presentation about a focused effort in the recycling area, or electronics area, but we're still struggling with that same kind of where can we get it and who can use it next and how do we keep it out of the waste stream. So, and I think Peter sort of planted a seed for all of you to think about. Maybe we can focus some discussion at the end about where are other opportunities for that kind of thing to happen, and where public policy could be a driver and a motivator for innovation. Without any further ado, we have Paul Green, again, the chairman of the board of the American Biogas Council, talking to us about opportunities for using anaerobic digestion for a source of renewable energy.
Thank you.
Do you guys prefer the dark screen? You like more light, but less screen? Anybody has a strong preference? One person shook their head, so go ahead, back more light. Okay.
What did we dim it down, but not all the way dark?
No, we can't.
Oh. Can we just lose the light there?
It's easier to see when it's dark.
Wait, so we have this or we have totally dark?
That's pretty good.
This is great. That's not bad. Okay.
Are we okay?
Thank you.
Good. Well, hello everyone, and it's a treat to be able to chat with you this afternoon, and we'll end your day today not on a very heavy topic. The topic of biogas is conversation about manures and food waste and biosolids. It's hard to take myself too seriously when I'm talking about such fun matters, but it's nonetheless it's an intriguing topic, and thanks for indulging me. So I'm with O'Brien & Gear, biggest environmental consulting company in upstate New York. So my other fun duty is to be chairman of the board of the American Biogas Council. We've got about 150 corporate members coast to coast, and we're committed to developing this biogas business in the U.S. It's very mature in Europe, and it's just getting going in the U.S. So what is anaerobic digestion? So basically, it's almost analogous to like the human digestive tract. So if you think of caloric wastes, if you put them in a sealed chamber and you heat the chamber and you mix it and you heat it, give it a couple days, couple weeks of residence time, it'll turn into methane. So just as what a landfill does, we're taking engineered systems, engineered tank-based systems that you can make methane out of it. And as the slide here talks about, you can get lots of interesting co-products off of that. So electricity and heat, renewable natural gas, compressed natural gas. So thus my story that's coming to you. Mm-hmm. So there's some intriguing different styles of digesters out there you may not be familiar with. So like here's one that if you look at the top slide, it's if you take stackable waste, you put it in something that looks like a garage, you seal the garage, you heat the floor, and you recirculate water on top of that waste, it will make biogas. So You can get, after a couple weeks residence time, about 50% volumetric reduction of the material in there. So that's this new technology we're bringing over from Europe called dry digestion. We're starting to see some facilities that use this technology. So food waste is a very sizable component of the feedstocks that we're after. So you've heard plenty of, say, composting-related conversations here today. So as you understand compost, that waste pile gets hot, and all that energy just goes away. And so what we're trying to do is take the caloric value of waste organics and capture that energy, capture those therms that are embedded inside of food wastes, and capture them and make good products out of them. So the end product of what we're making is just like compost. So you're squeezing the energy out of the organics, and then the end product is just like composting. So you're selling bagged or bulk organic compost, and you're sending that material off to making golf courses, nurseries, growing your produce, organic agriculture, what have you. So the benefits of doing anaerobic digestion is curbing methane emissions. So engineered digesters have a much smaller methane footprint than, say, a landfill or a manure lagoon. Making renewable energy, you're able to capture the organic liquid and liquid fertilizer off of it and monetize that and do good things with it. A lot of farms and ag facilities struggle with nutrient runoff, so being able to better manage farms' nutrient management plans. The digesters are integrally related to how farmers are looking at land applying their manures and managing the nutrients. High-quality fiber comes from some of these digesters. Let's say on farm-specific sites, one of the big benefits to the farmers is they take the solids off the digester and they return it to the animal barns and use it as bedding. Extends landfill life, reduces our use of fossil fuels. There's a bit of a national security story as we kind of can make more of our own renewables, lessen carbon footprint, and jobs. So if you look at this kind of menu here of different feedstocks that you can toss into a digester, everything from spent Coca-Cola to banana peels to corn husks to roadkill to take your pick. You can just throw it all in the tank and you're good to go. One nice thing about AD is it's baseload power generation. So compared to other renewables like wind and solar that do struggle with uptime, you'll find a digester in a community is giving you baseload power. So as the cliche that utilities like to hear, that concept of base load that is very appealing to utilities. So everything from yard trimmings, again, food wastes, industrial organic wastes, biosolids from municipal treatment plants, fats, oils, and greases from everything from industry to grease trap wastes from restaurants, or animal manures are good candidates for tossing in a digester. So when looking at renewable natural gas opportunities, this slide tells you that in 2010, our country used about 24 billion cubic feet of gas. So the Gas Technology Institute calculated that if you look at the total opportunity for biogas, if you exploited to economic levels what you can get from landfill gas and waste products in anaerobic digesters, you're talking probably being able to make up maybe 10% of our nation's gas needs by digester gas. And I'm often asked about shale gas in comparison to digester opportunities, and quite a hot potato there. I think opportunities for digesters will not eclipse what the hypesters are talking about for shale gas opportunities. It is less, but it is sizable, so it's not insignificant. So if you can exploit these fields of waste, you could get to 10% of what we use for our natural gas supply, which is certainly significant. If you look at the U.S. energy mix. This shows the slice of the pie devoted to renewables, which is not all that big. What we're trying to exploit is some of those fields there. You'll see, let's say in biofuels, 20% of our renewables are from biofuels. A lot of that is corn ethanol. So we're trying to get to where, I've got some slides coming up on other countries on where, say, Germany is the model for digester gas in terms of just percent penetration of the renewable field. So it's really just, we're just scratching the surface here in the U.S. So in my role as chairman of the American Biogas Council, we're tracking digester development activity around the country, and we've we found about 324 under development in the U.S., a good chunk of those in New York, looking at about 649 megawatts of power under development, over $3 billion of industry investment coming. And the typical plant is about a $13 million piece of infrastructure is these common digesters. So there is upside here. So when you look at how much recycling we've done, when you look at separating paper and plastics and glass, the red arrow there shows you that we're only 2% recovered of food scraps in our waste supply chain. So lots of upside potential, and separation is an issue that you and I, when the hauler comes to our curbside and takes our single source bin or however yours are collected, they're not really loving seeing a whole lot of food scraps in there with the paper and the plastic at this point. So some separation collection hurdles to overcome. The industry is growing. The overall story of AD is a story that people are latching on to. It's non-combustion, so it's a good story. It's a happy story, and it tends to be somewhat of an economic. Some of the paybacks are where the challenges are going to be. So there's some grant programs. NYSERDA's got a good grant program out there now to the tune of like $1.5 million per digester site that they'll provide as a cash grant. So there is some good groundswell of activity. So Europe is far ahead of us in this space. Germany especially, they've got 6,800 digesters in and running, and some other European countries are well on their way to a mature market. And I'll kind of show you where we are as a country with our digester installed base. So right now in the U.S., there's 162 digesters at farms. There's wastewater treatment plants that have digesters that generate electricity from their digesters. There's several hundred of those. There's only 10 standalone merchant commercial organics digesters, and there's a bunch of landfills with gas collection that make power from landfill gas, as well as there's several hundred industries that have their own dedicated digester making power out of organics from industries. So there's really 5 different digester segments. There's the pure on-farm play, and each cow makes about 250 watts of power. So think about, 100-watt bulb, cow, cow makes 3 of those bulbs in terms of electric generating potential. So here's a shot of the closest digester to where we are, just a stone's throw away in Poston Kill, happy farmer with his digester. And the red vessel there is a steel tank, and the mechanical device sticking out the side is a propeller-style mixer, and that gas bubble over the top is it's gas storage. So it's the gas being generated, and in the upper right is my beautiful daughter, a budding renewable energy entrepreneur, next to the generator set there where they're making power for enough, about 100 homes in Rensselaer County. So 100 kilowatts, and you assume about 1,000 watts per house. So here's a big farm in Scipio Center. I'm not fully sure where that is in New York, west of here somewhere. That it's kind of hard to make out what the digester is there, but it's a long, in-ground, flat concrete tank at the farm, and it's a big 1 megawatt power generation facility that they're able to make power for about 1,000 houses coming off of this farm here. So as far as farms go, they benefit from low odors. If you kind of drive by a big CAFO, you know what a big CAFO smells like. A CAFO with a digester smells a lot more innocuous, and helps with their nutrient management. When they land apply the manures afterwards, those nutrients left in the digested manure are readily taken up by the plants. So there's farms that take in outside substrates. So, as I listen to the gentleman present the paper on the elementary school and their good food waste segregation program there, a good alternative if they didn't have a good local composter would be to find a farmer with a digester, and that farmer can get a heck of a lot more biogas, methane out of food waste than he can with animal manures. So the manures from the cow has extracted a lot of the fuel value out of what they've eaten. So if you take in food waste, there's a lot more energy potential in raw food waste. But here's an example of one of the trophy facilities in New York State right now. It's called Synergy Biogas in Covington, Wyoming County. So they're taking in manure from a 2,000 head dairy farm, and they're taking in 40,000 gallons a day of food waste from a 100-mile radius. So they're taking in cheese whey from a huge Kraft factory where they're making mozzarella cheese. They take in a lot of organics from Wegmans stores. So it makes about enough power for 1,400 houses. They make a lot of fertilizer for sale as compost and land application. And it's a job story there. They had 20 construction jobs, and it'll have 5 full-time operators by the time it's up and running. So in the upper left shot here, there's a picture of a facility that my firm, O'Brien & Gear, we did for a Swedish company that came over, Swedish Biogas. We're in Sweden. Everybody, when you pull up and you fill your car, you can see which you prefer or which is cheaper, biogas or liquid petrol. And about half of the fuel use in Sweden is renewable natural gas from digester gas. So when the Swedes have come over here, that shot of the upper left-hand side there is a digester project that we designed and built for them in the U.S., and it's located at a municipal wastewater treatment plant where they're going to take in outside waste and they're going to fuel city buses off of the renewable natural gas they're making. So the standalone merchant plants are like the fourth side of market segmentation. The pictures from a regional manure digester in Wisconsin, where they take in manures from a bunch of farms and they're making 4 megawatts of electricity there. So this is a developer-led program, getting development money, centralized digester, taking in any outside material they can, signing a power purchase agreement with the utility to take the power, hopefully monetize the heat somewhere as well. That heat, we're seeing some traction in controlled environment, aquaculture, agriculture, fish farms, grow tomatoes, greenhouses, that kind of thing is a way to monetize the heat from these. I recently came back from China on a world tour of giving a talk on biogas opportunities, and this is a facility we visited over in Anyang, China, where they're taking outside organic waste, and you'll see in the right side of the slide there gas compression, gas upgrading, where they're taking the biogas, and the city taxis in this city are able to, they can choose, they can go with liquid petrol or compressed biogas, and they can save about 30% on their fill-ups for the day if they fill up with compressed renewable biogas. So they're getting a lot of taxi drivers pulling in here and filling up for the day on compressed renewable biogas. Here's a rendering of what a large urban organics AD facility would look like. So if you're in New York City, Syracuse, Buffalo, Albany, this would be the size kind of facility if you had a large quantity of, say, yard waste, food waste, biosolids that you wanted to co-digest. This is kind of typical size, and this is coming. It's on the radar for being viable. The fifth market segment is looking at landfills with biogas collection. There's several thousand landfills in the U.S., and maybe 25% of them are making power off of their landfill gas. And it's not just electricity, there's opportunities for making liquefied natural gas off of landfills, for fueling city buses, garbage trucks, snow plows, that kind of thing as well. Here's one of the more innovative biogas stories in the country. So there's a very cutting-edge dairy in Indiana where this is a shot of their milk truck where they're looking for being energy neutral as a dairy. So when you look at the cows and the manure and the gas and the milk trucks, so they're filling their milk delivery truck and pickup truck off of the biogas that their cows made, off of the digesters. So vehicle fuel is up and coming and viable. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Wanted to share with you, and Peter and I exchanged a smile, the idea of landfills and biogas and greenhouses. One of our Environmental Excellence Awards winners was Modern Landfill, who did just that. They tapped off the biogas from the landfill, directed that resource as a way to heat and light their hydroponic tomato greenhouse, and then was able to then have a sustainable food product as an end result. So it's a fine example out in the central part of New York State.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I'd like to open it to you all. If you have some questions or clarifications or things you'd like to drill down on, direct to our panelists. If you do, I encourage you, as we've been asked, to come to the microphone so that we can hear your question or your statement or things that you'd like to toss around a bit. I know it's late in the day, but hopefully we have a little more brain power. No? Yay.
Are these questions?
Do we have a light? Up. He's asking.
You got me?
You're okay. Yes,
All right.
we're good. There you go.
And these questions weren't a plant either. I made them up myself. But quickly, Diane, can you give a percentage recovery from the deconstruction? Sort of how much of what you deconstruct by mass or whatever is what then can go for resale?
Well,
Or whatever criteria you can use.
we just did a 2,600 square foot house that was built in 1980. So it had, modern dimensional lumber, the pink fiberglass insulation, which we were able to bag and sell all of. And in that particular job, because of there weren't too many layers, et cetera, I think we were, I don't have the final data, but we were over 70%. So the asphalt shingles and the sheetrock were the things that we weren't able to recycle or save. Although in other markets you can recycle those. So it depends on the project, and it depends on your geographic location. If
Right.
you're near someone, I hear that there's asphalt recycling in Buffalo now, but we needed to get closer, otherwise it's too cost prohibitive. So 70% plus.
Great. I have another one too. Oh, did you want to comment?
I had another question.
What?
I had a question.
Okay. Hey,
Or
let's-
did you have a follow-up?
think
I have a
she's-
second question,
Okay.
not a
We'll
follow-up.
let
Please, don't want to
Katie
cut you
just
short.
follow up, and then I'll go.
Sure. So the other question, Peter, so the thing that strikes me as different about Diane and Paul's sort of approach versus yours is that the idea is to, if we didn't need to have dismantling of computers and recycling of toxic chemicals or metals, is that sort of thing, right? That's sort of better than where we're at now, which you can sort of think of works to eliminate the service that you're providing. To some degree. So I wanted to know, first, sort of where do you see yourself going as the manufacturers alter their products so that there are more reusable pieces, replacements that they can provide without an extra service? And similarly, whether in terms of recovery facilities, how do you work with retailers or whoever is providing the collection sites Because that, I mean, is that a burden for them? How do you get them to want to provide that? What are the incentives for them to participate?
Great. Two very good questions. I'll take the second one first. So we provide all of our collection sites with packaging supplies. Sometimes they're rolling containers that are on wheels. Sometimes it's an outside storage container. Sometimes it's one of our trailers, depending on their volume. So we try to make it as easy and convenient for them so that we can get the volume of their material. And then we have a number of different collection vehicles. We've got our main kind of box trucks that can pick up ground level locations, and then we've got tractor trailers that can accommodate loading dock scenarios. So those are the methods that we use. And what's happened is, myself and the other guys in our company have a background in the garbage business. So we came from this mindset of density, in filling our trucks wherever we may be, whether it's Messina up in northern New York or whether it's New York City or Buffalo. We want to come back to our place with full trucks. That's really something that we know is efficient manner. So that's kind of the key, and that's what these collection sites do. They build that density. The first question you had asked about is that the changing material stream and the volumes. Definitely, we do see that, and we have to look and forecast what's going to happen 5 years from now, when there won't be right now we're still processing tremendous amounts of CRTs, televisions and computer monitors. Still a lot of them out there that haven't been flushed through, but at some point those are going to be done. They're going to be over. The old console TVs will be out, and we'll be dealing mainly with just the flat panels and the plasmas and those types of things. So, but the other force that's at work is, even though the size of things are getting smaller, we've got a couple of other things that are happening at the same time. There are more of them. There's just a lot more electronic items that people are dealing with, and not only there are a lot more of them, the frequency is occurring, faster. So, where it used to be you'd buy your console TV and it would last for 25 years, now you're buying these flat panel TVs. We see them come in 2-3 years. That's it. That's the lifespan. Some of them go longer, but if they break or they don't function any longer, the repair costs can be prohibitive to repairing them. So we see a lot of those coming in. So it's a really good question. Size and volume of some things are going down, but quantity and frequency are going up. So and we know the goal that's been set forth, for the law is definitely going up. So we're basically, we feel we've got to divert more. We got to continue to divert more. Some of the studies we just find hard to believe where, they're saying less than 50% is actually still being diverted, but depends on the marketplace. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask one of our panelists for a question to another panelist, perhaps.
I'm going to ask Peter a question. So how does the industry of e-waste recycling tackle the environmental issues with all the rare earth metals and wacky metals, lead and whatnot? Is it more an emissions or a worker safety challenge, or how are the challenges addressed?
Well, our industry is actually made up of many, many different types of companies. So when you talk about lead, for example, the lead we find mainly in the CRT glass from the televisions and computer monitors. So we actually will utilize a downstream partner to manage that for us. So we're not necessarily breaking the glass. What we're doing is accumulating it in large quantities and then sending it to a specialized company that manages and just specializes in CRT glass. And there's many, many other examples like that. Batteries is a good one. Where we're exhibiting outside here, there happens to be a battery recycler that's right next to our booth, and they're a partner. They're actually a downstream partner. So when we accumulate laptops, batteries, cell phone batteries, and the little button batteries that we have to pop off the motherboards, and all these, there's lots and lots of different types of batteries. They also have to be managed a proper way. So you could look at, I don't know, but I would venture to guess there's probably 30 different downstream materials that we send out to other specialized companies for final processing. Things like, a good example would be circuit boards. They contain some materials that, if not managed the right way, are problematic. But when we accumulate them, when we send in 40,000-pound batches to a smelter, we know that they're being consumed and that they're recovering all the possible precious metals, and it's being done in a safe way. So it's definitely a good question. I hope that answers.
Any other questions? Yes? Can you come down, I'm sorry, can you come down to the mic so they are able to record the question? Thank you. We appreciate your cooperation on that.
Just a quick question, I may have lost, or not heard a part of it, but in terms of the reuse center, is all the material donated, or is some of it purchased from you, and if 55% comes from sales, is the rest through grants and things like that, or?
I'd say more than 90% of the materials are donated. We will accept materials on consignment, but only from other nonprofits, since they don't benefit from a tax receipt. And as far as the revenues, yeah, we've been raising, in the $300,000 range in grants and individual donations, municipal support.
Come on down, as they say.
I really feel like I always wanted to be in a game show. There you go.
The biogas game show. I'm Beth Muir. I work for the Department of Environmental Conservation, a lot on green products, and I have a question for Paul. I was wondering, you talked about Sweden and how much biogas they have. How did they get like 50% of their, pump vehicle fuel to be that way if there's only 10% of our natural gas for that? And then I'll ask you, because I don't want to walk down to the microphone again, any things they're doing in Europe, the government policies to support biogas that we would learn from?
Sure. So on the policy question, so the big one is this concept of paying a few extra cents per kilowatt for biogas-generated electricity. So Germany especially is the example, as they call it, a feed-in tariff, which isn't very explanatory on its own what that term means, feed-in tariff, but it's a premium price that they'll pay for renewable power coming from a biogas plant. So a farmer in Germany is making about as much from his biogas plant as he is off his crops. So they can... That law is so mature that they can go to a bank, and the bank knows, their policy is so cast in concrete that they'll finance that without a heartbeat and no anguish. And you know what our policy is like here in the U.S. It's kind of changes with the wind. So financing is an issue. And on the Sweden question, so they've just really been committed to infrastructure to get biogas done in very innovative ways, like a huge, and I shouldn't say it's just biogas from organics. A big practice there is waste to energy, so taking municipal solid waste and so they're big into district heating. There is another kind of innovative energy practice. So if you are heating your home in Sweden, chances are you're piping into, like you and I will pipe into water at our house, they'll pipe into heat at their house because they've got district heating. A lot of that is waste heat from combustion of solid waste. But just more organics diversion, a lot from the agricultural piece, and they're doing more with gasification and syngas to feed the biogas infrastructure there in Sweden. So it's common, you'll pull into a filling station, you won't see just underground tanks. You've got these big, they look like massive hot dogs laying out in the filling station lot. It's compressed natural gas that they'll truck these big hot dogs from the biogas digester site into the communities, and they lay them down in a pavement, and then you just kind of fill right off of the biogas. Big high pressure hot dogs.
And the next winner is?
Just to follow up on the anaerobic digesters. I'm Anahita Williamson, director of the Pollution Prevention Institute. So we do a lot of work with small, medium-sized companies and food processors. Many of them have high BOD waste streams, but anaerobic digestion is expensive, and they don't have a centralized unit near them. They're paying extra surcharges for it to go down to the wastewater treatment system. Do you do any work with those size companies, or do you have any suggestions for that type of waste stream? Thank you.
Sure, yeah, we do plenty. We've done out by Rochester, we've done digesters at a bunch of craft plants where they're taking their high-strength, high BOD waste, cheese whey, things like that, and there's dozens of different styles of digesters, and there are small packaged ones that are suitable for industries that, there is a limit of how tiny they get, but a lot, if they're paying what some, if their price per pound of BOD is 50 cents a pound or more for their surcharge, there's ways to do a small package digester cost effectively that won't break the bank. I'd be glad to share with you more information.
I think we have one more question that we might be able to fit in, and if anybody else wants to sneak in, we have a few more minutes.
I have a question about reuse, Finger Lakes reuse. In Rochester, we have Rehouse, we have Historic House Parts, we have Habitats Restore. So, so there's all that competition for that same basic market. Do you run into any issues with a Habitat Restore in your community, for example, or is that just not present there?
There's a couple answers. One is I've been to all three of those. They actually serve slightly different material sets, and the Ithaca market is much smaller. So we do have a Habitat that is considering a restore, and we're talking about. We're at least exploring a way to do it collaboratively because of the small market. But we also have an architectural salvage program that's in our market, and I think between the two of us, we're still overwhelmed with the materials that are coming at us.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I had one more question.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
It's actually for Paul. Just my background in the waste industry, you got me really thinking about the landfills that exist out there now. And is there an opportunity to go back to some of these sites and mine them and go after, the materials that are in the landfill, either for biogas or for other materials?
From what I've been seeing on landfill mining, some of the technologies like pyrolysis could make some sense. I think biogas would be a long putt when you look at all the daily cover that's mixed in there. Now, could you send that material through some type of separator, some type of screen? You could get into that. Seen some interesting data of how you can accelerate degradation in a landfill. You can get creative with some of the things you could put back into a landfill to get airspace reclaimed. But the mining concept, it's that 6 inches of daily cover that complicates things, that kind of gums up the works a bit.
I can see that.
Well, I want to thank you all for your stick-to-itiveness. It is about 5 o'clock, according to, it is 5 o'clock, and I wanted to get you out on time. One round of applause, please, for our panelists. And a round of applause to you all, so thank you very much. I want to remind you that if you're here tomorrow, we get started with coffee and some more delicious goodies at 8:30, I believe, downstairs in the well, and then we will start off the first sessions back up here in either hearing room A or B at 9 o'clock. So have a good evening, drive safely, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Now I just got to figure